President and Chairman Grimson, very honored to be in your company today and to represent the EU Ambassador for Arctic Affairs, that many of you know well, Marianne Conness, who unfortunately could not come to Shanghai and asked me to do so. Ambassador Gunnarsson, thanks for your introduction. Yes, the EU is part of the Arctic. Because the European Arctic is within the EU. So we think that we are in a good position to say a few things. And yes, the European Union is the Swiss knife of globalization. So maybe we can there also say a few things. What we want is simple and in fact already agreed by all of you, and I was happy to hear Senior Representative Gao Feng this morning stating exactly that. The Arctic needs to be safe, stable, prosperous, and sustainable. These are the key words, and all our actions need to go towards that. The EU's own Arctic policy is first and foremost protect a very fragile environment. It's not just about conservation, but it is about fighting the most dangerous threat that we are witnessing, which is climate change. Second pillar of our action is sustainable development. And in order to do that, the third pillar is cooperation. International cooperation, and the EU, and that's why we are here today, really wish to see in China one of our major partners on future Arctic developments. We do, like Canada mentioned, we do want to promote sustainable development in and around the Arctic with due account both to the people living in the Arctic, their livelihood, but also the impact of climate change on their development and economic life. This is a very difficult challenge, how to preserve a balance between the need to protect or to preserve, and at the same time, to ensure development, livelihood, progress, but in a sustainable way. And we do believe that it is of strategic interest for all stakeholders of the Arctic that the economic activities are done in a sustainable, responsible, and environmental sound manner. And I have taken note, as you have, of COSCO commitments to do so. And all the ISO XXX standards that COSCO has adhered to is a good signal for future shipping activities in the northern route. In order to contribute to sustainable development, apart from the good words that each one could have, how do we do that concretely? What are the tools? And the tools are clearly linked to the digital revolution and the energy transition revolution that we are witnessing. So we need to use the new technologies, smart solutions. We need to use renewable energy in the Arctic with the highest environmental and safety standards in the case of extractive industries. We need also to be extremely cautious on Arctic fish resources, fishery products, and we need to be extremely severe against illegal fishing. And we need to use what we call in Europe sustainable business model, which is circular economy. From recycling to short-circuit markets, these are the things we are looking to. Now, the EU is, of course, a source of support in and around the Arctic. And we think that what we have been doing and what we are going to do is exactly what transnational cooperation means. First, we have spent about 1.5 billion euros, that's about $2 billion over the last years, from the European Union budget in the High North, in the Great North. This money has served to support small business, sustainable transport, green energy, cross-border programs such as those in the Barents region. Secondly, we invest hugely in research on the Arctic, thanks to the Horizon program, with a focus on climate on one hand and sustainable development solutions on the other. China is a partner in Horizon programs on the Arctic. Maybe many of you do not know that. And we are, for instance, working on developing an integrated Arctic observation system to better predict Arctic climate change and its impact, and we do that with our Chinese friends. And also, we have invested in EU space programs with Copernicus and Galileo, which allow to see what's going on clearly from the space to the Arctic. Now, having solutions, unfortunately, is not enough, because we need to use these solutions together. And as it was mentioned, the meeting earlier this week in Finland did not deliver the spirit of joint cooperation that we desperately need. We have a strong interest as Europeans in seeing that the Arctic remain a zone of low tension, as low as possible, and we welcome China's commitments that it's not seeking confrontation in the Arctic. Complex issues can only be addressed through negotiated solutions, through cooperation, through engagement, not through confrontation. That is why the EU is engaged at the multilateral level, within the UN, within all specialized agencies, and it has been mentioned, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. But also, that has not been mentioned, the International Maritime Organization, and in this context, I want to stress that the EU is looking very closely on how the law on the sea is implemented in the Arctic. And of course, on climate, me being a French citizen, a former French diplomat, I cannot but restate the importance of the Paris Agreement and its implementation, and note, in that respect, that China, in December 2015, played a critical and positive role, with other actors, of course, but China helped this Paris Agreement to come about, and at the last COP in Poland, Katowice, China delivered with other partners the roadmap of implementation, and that's also good news for all of us. So, we will continue to support the work of the Arctic Council, which is the primary forum for international cooperation in the region and will support regional and sub-regional cooperation, especially in the European Arctic. That's our DNA, but beyond also. Regional cooperation does have a substantial impact on the lives of local communities, and we're looking very much forward working with China in that respect. In brief, cooperation on the Arctic with Arctic and non-Arctic stakeholders is absolutely crucial for the European Union, and I thank you for your attention.